Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of the Intelligent Gentleman podcast. I am your host, Milt Walker, and I'm coming to you from my office. And I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about, very briefly, what's going on with the coronavirus pandemic worldwide. And I just want to say, hope everybody is staying safe and following the advice of the health professionals on how to minimize the transmission spread of this virus amongst the populace. It's very important that we do that by practicing good personal hygiene as well as common courtesy when it comes to, coughing and sneezing, making sure that you're covering it, making sure that if you do feel like you have to do that, making sure you're not in a crowded area. And it's not to be, it's not to be looked at as you have it, but it's just basic common courtesy to not do that around people, because it's age-old wisdom that passes sickness. I mean, that's what causes it most times is sickness, and that's how it's passed. And even if it's allergies, even if it's just a basic common cold or common flu, it's just common courtesy for you to take that precaution not to spread it. Or if it's sinuses, just common courtesy just to not be rude and do that on other people. So I think that's just, the gist of it for now. I know they're working on, I was reading an article this morning, and it was talking about how they have several vaccines that won't really be in mass production for they're looking at about 18 months, as long as the virus is stable and it doesn't mutate as much as any other virus in that family. Like the flu and so on and so forth, that mutates pretty much every year. That they're looking, that they're hoping that they can have this vaccine. And I just want to kind of illustrate, the fact that you need to stay calm. It's not just about not panicking. It's about being able to be aware of your surroundings and being able to make sure that anything that can harm not just yourself, but other people, that you're actually keeping that in mind, bearing that in mind, and being aware of that in your surroundings. I think that's very important, especially from a man's standpoint, because a lot of the stuff that has been going on is still going on. A lot of these destructive elements are still going on, and some of them will take advantage of the situation. I was watching a video from Mexico, where people were rioting and just going into stores and taking stuff, and and I don't know the details surrounding that particular issue, but all I know is destruction of property is never really okay. Like you shouldn't really have to do that unless it's like absolutely necessary. Like if it's some type of wrong being done, you should always fight against injustice and oppression. And so, that's one thing. But, if it's just because, they closed early and you want to go get some stuff, don't be that person. Don't be those people. And you definitely want to make sure that you take other people's property and lives into consideration. Now, with that being said, that's all I'm going to say about the coronavirus. This podcast, I want to focus on something that can elevate us during this time, and hopefully something that we practice not only in times of great need, but in times of great wealth and and great success, which is love. I want to talk a little bit about love and what it means. These are my opinions and from my experiences. And so, I'm just going to jump right into it. So I believe some people have a misconception about what love is. People think that love means you're willing to do anything for someone. And in a certain context, that is true. But it's not to be taken so general as to be applied to anything. For example, if you're in a relationship with someone, because you love them, doesn't mean that you should just go through anything for them, especially when it pertains to abuse and any negative things that can be detrimental to your health, your well-being, that person is doing on a consistent basis, right? And when I say a consistent basis, we all have issues and we all have things that we can work on and we can be better at. But as long as you're trying and as long as you're making a consistent effort to become better, you're going to make mistakes, and that's going to be okay. As long as you don't cross what I call, the deal breaker line. When you cross into that deal breaker line, then that's where you're really deciding that whatever it is that is the issue is greater than your relationship. And at that point, you have chosen to be done with your relationship. Essentially, that's what you're choosing. So that's what you have to understand, because remember, you have to take responsibility for your own actions, right? And so even if the person forgives you and gives you several, chances to make amends, that's still, you still have to bear in mind that it's you who crossed the line. So you can never try to hold it against that person for feeling some type of way about that, right? You always have to respect that, and you have to respect yourself. You have to understand that, I did this, so let me own up to and even if it costs you the relationship, but you need to own up to it, because ultimately your goal as a person should be to elevate yourself. And you can't elevate yourself if you're not taking responsibility for your actions. And so this brings us back to love, right? So in love, you take responsibility for your actions because of how you feel about that person, right? Because when you say you love that person, you're not trying to hurt them, even though you may make a mistake. You're not trying to hurt them. But when you cross that line into intentionally trying to do these things to that person, you have crossed a very thin line. And sometimes it's very hard to get back from that, because it breaks. I was reading a post online and they said it perfectly. Once you breach that pact of trust, it's very hard to get it back. It's very hard to get it back. And me, myself, as a man, I like to exude a lot of positive energy. I like to give out what I like to receive. And so by me doing this, if that happens, that shuts that off to a certain extent. It doesn't shut it off to the point where I'm just not going to have any love for you. It shuts it off to the fact that, okay, I really do need to be careful with how much I pour, because if not, I'll pour away everything and I won't have any left for myself, right? And that's the relationship between, those who use and those who really love you, right? It will be a mutual pouring in a loving relationship. When it's not a loving relationship, it will always be one-sided. And I'm not saying one-sided in the sense that one person's always making the mistakes, because that could very well be true. But it's always one-sided in that whenever anything like that happens, one person is always trying to pull it back towards the positive and the other person is not. So it's a constant drain, because when you're doing that, you're exerting energy, right? You're putting energy, you're manifesting your energy into existence to change the vibration, to change the value of whatever is going on in your relationship. And that drains you. That's energy. That's energy. I'm quick to tell people, we make energy. As men, we make energy. Like you can create energy. And if you tap into the infinite source of energy, you will always have energy. But that's not the point. The point is not to say that I can do this forever, right? Because the point is that you shouldn't have to do that forever. It should be, because eventually you're going to get tired. And you're going to need time to recharge your battery. And when that happens in a relationship, that's when the vulnerabilities kick in. And that's where you really run the risk of doing those things yourself, right? Losing yourself, in the sense that you have now become what you have been trying to fight from happening. And so because of that, because it's a spiritual drain. It's not a physical drain, even though when you're drained spiritually, it does make you feel fatigued, because that's the, you could just think about the saying, how people say, oh, that person has a lot of spirit, right? And when you look at them, the people that they're talking about, you see that they have a lot of energy. Right, they got a lot of energy, so they're always the first one to volunteer. They're always the first one to put their best foot forward, so on and so forth. Right, first one to apologize, the first one to accept the consequences of their actions. They have a lot of spirit, right? They got a lot of spirit, and so when that's the case. Once it's drained, you're left with whatever your body has, and now it's even more apparent. That person lacks motivation. You know what I'm saying? You can look at it, even though that person might be physically fit, and they have the energy to do it, but because that spirit is not full, because they're not motivated, right? They can't muster enough energy to do it. And that's why. So you always have to protect that. You have to protect that, because it is a balance. It is a delicate balance, as all things should be. And so, getting back to the topic, with love in a relationship, you have to be willing to give and take. You have to be willing to give and take. Because it's not going to be, if you're the strong person and you're so used to, and I can vouch for this. This is me. You're so used to being that person that people can lean on. They hug. They release all of their energy, all the negative emotions and stuff out through you. You're the conduit for that. And that's a great feeling. That's an awesome feeling. It feels great to be that for people. But when you are that person, it gets draining, because sometimes you don't have anyone to do that for you. So when you're getting into a relationship, you're looking for that too. You're looking for somebody who can recharge you. And not just recharge you when they feel like it, recharge you when you need it. And we'll be right back after this break. Hello, and thank you for listening to the Intelligent Gentleman podcast. We'll be right back after this message. All right, we're back, and we're talking about love. We're talking about love. And what we left off at was talking about, when you're a strong person and you're always there for other people, sometimes you don't have that person there to recharge you. So, sometimes you feel a little drained. But I think it's important to point out that that's one of the things that you want to look for getting into a relationship, right? Is the person strong, right? Does this person have a strong personality? Positive, of course, where, you feel like the person would be able to do that, be able to recharge you when you need it the most, right? When you're most vulnerable, will that person take advantage of that? Or will that person actually pour back into you to get you back? And it doesn't mean they have to fill you completely back up. It's great if they can do that. But it doesn't mean that they have to, but as long as they keep you from hitting the rock bottom and being empty until because some people go through those things mentally and it manifests in different ways. And when that happens, it's hard to come back from that. It's hard to come back from that. And so if you can't be that person that can help them come out of that, then you're not only hurting yourself, you're hurting them. You know what I mean? So again, it goes back to love, right? Love. You don't want to hurt the person in any way, shape, or form. You don't want to cause any type of mental, physical anguish to them. And so you're very careful about that. And it doesn't mean that you won't make mistakes. I want to keep reiterating this because, people have this misconception that means that the perfect mate is going to be perfect. No, that's not what that means. It means that as you both grow and evolve and become the higher self during this process, you can aid each other and you can make sure that, you're both staying on track with that. Because ultimately that should be the goal between the two of you. And that's the pact, right? We talked about the trust pact. That's the pact. That's the agreement, the spiritual agreement between both of you. That's what you want to do. You want to help that person build in whatever they're doing in life, right? That's why it's companionship, right? That's why they call it companionship, because you're not just there physically, you're there mentally and you're there emotionally, right? And when any of these things are out of balance, you see it. It manifests itself in different ways. And so you really have to kind of watch that and make sure that you don't, that you keep a balance. And so that's that. But also, when it comes to love in a relationship, being that in this society that we live in today, and you see it now more than ever, a lot of things that love is, it's not what you see regularly. And it's not because there's not an abundance of people who love. It's actually because there is an abundance of information about things that are not love. And so people get the misconception that not a lot of people want love, but everybody wants love. Everybody. There is nothing that is in existence that does not want that, right? The children come out of the mother's womb craving love. That's all they want. The sustenance from their mother. That's all they want. And as a man, it's your responsibility to provide a safe place for that, right? And that's how your love transmits through the woman into the child, right? Now, a lot of people take the misconception on that too. And again, we're talking about relationships when we're talking about love. So we have to talk about the family. So a lot of people have a misconception about that. They think, oh, the man's supposed to be working all the time. No, that's not what that means. In this day and age, in this society, that's what's necessary a lot of times, right? But that's not how it should be, right? If you look back at the ancient civilizations, yeah, you had people who were out in the farms and out there cultivating the land and doing what they needed to do, to make sure everything was good, right? But think about this. I want to challenge people to think, and I want you to go and research and kind of look up certain things about agriculture and so on and so forth. When you create these systems and you have systems of agriculture, those are automated systems to a great extent. The farmer that goes out every day to tend his farm doesn't necessarily have to do the same thing every day, right? So you don't have to plant a whole field full of food every day. You see? You don't have to do that every day, And if you do, then that means you probably need to hire some people to help you with that. But that's a different story. That's a different topic. We're not going to get into, entrepreneurship and building wealth and stuff like that right now. But we're going to talk about this. We're talking about love. And so when you're out there and you're cultivating these fields, right? And you put in the work, you plant the seeds, right? And listen to this ancient wisdom, because it comes through in so many different ways. You go out there, you plant the seed, and then you reap what you sow, right? A period of that time is spent not necessarily doing nothing, but not doing what you were doing initially. So it may look like to somebody else like you're not doing anything, but you're really out there. You might be maintaining the equipment. You might be checking on the livestock. You might just be walking through, making sure no weeds are popping up. You know what I mean? Doing a checkup. You get what I'm saying? So that's the dynamic. At a certain point in the relationship, as a man, there's a point where you should be at where you don't have to put so much work into it. You just kind of cultivate it, right? Now you maintain it. It's the maintaining stage. So now we have to maintain this, right? When there's an issue, we address it, right? Whatever we can be preventative about, we be preventative about, right? And I always say this about myself, and it's something I realized about myself. When I'm in a relationship, I like to try to keep myself out of suspicious situations, right? And that's a hard thing to do, because nowadays people look at a lot of things as suspicious situations. You could just see an old friend and get a hug from them, and that could be looked at as a suspicious situation, right? But again, remember, that's all of that information that's out there that's promoting this negative type of thought. But in actuality, it's innocent, so, you can't really judge a person on that. But my thought process is this: the people, and it's been true so far, my friends, even my female friends, they know, they can tell when I'm in a relationship, because I'm not available as much as I used to be, right? And it's not because there was anything going on. It's because I'm focused on my relationship. And I'm in that relationship to build something. So if I'm focusing on that and this is my intention, then they respect that because they're my friends. You see what I'm saying? They may even help me with that, right? By, whatever the case may be, it may turn into, going out together as couple, whatever, but the point being that it shouldn't be any type of, thought that comes across like, oh, you really don't, you don't mess with us no more because you got that girl now. Well, it ain't that I don't mess with you no more. It's just my focus is centered on my creation, what I'm building, my relationship. That's what I'm focused on. And if you can't respect that, then Jay-Z said it best. I like the way he said it. If you can't understand that, then we ain't meant to be friends. That's plain and simple. I mean, I can't really get any plainer than that, because that just shows that they don't understand what love is. Okay? And so going back to the family, right? As a man, you putting in all this work and getting all this money. There's a time where you should be spending time with your family. All that time you're sacrificing for things, you're missing out on your family, right? And so with that, you're trading off, and you have to be very careful about that, because one is inherently greater than the other, hands down. There is no competition in that. There's no debate. There is no discussion. Your family is more important. Again, the way the society is set up now, see, that used to be a lot easier back in the day when you could go out there and you could just roam the land with your family, and you could just eat off the land and live off the land, and you could stake anywhere and just live for a second and then move on to the next place if you needed to, right? It was easier then, but now we've become so civilized that we're in one spot. We pretty much tie ourselves down to one spot, and so now we can't go nowhere, right? We can't move. So now we're dependent on this. So now that you've made yourself dependent on that, that's where that line gets crossed, because now it becomes a matter of survival. Now it becomes a matter of, now I have a choice between my family and my livelihood for my family, right? And so that's where that dynamic comes in. But you always need to keep it first and foremost, dead center. Family over everything. So if it's not about the family, then it's really not for you, right? And again, that's a healthy dynamic. That's a healthy dynamic. And it's funny because I've been in situations where, people, I've had to make decisions like that. My daughter, her mom decided to move, across country. And for me, being I was single, it's not like I didn't have anybody at that time. So I want to illustrate this because we're talking about family. In my mind, which just means that if I was in a relationship, then it would have been more of a discussion. But there was no discussion. She moved across the country. I'm going to be moving too. It may not be right now. It may not be in the next 2 months, 3 months, but it's going to be soon. That's my goal. That's my preparation. So from there on out, that's my goal. So when I go into where I'm working at and I talk to them and I tell them, this is my plan. I'm not hiding it. I'm not trying to, if y'all can help me, like which they did. It was a great company I worked for, and they transferred me basically out there, and I was able to just keep working without no problem. Took me a little vacation in between, enjoyed the sights, and went right back to it. But that's how it should be. You see what I'm saying? Like, if you don't stand up for your convictions, if you don't stand up for what you believe in, then yeah, people ain't gonna do nothing for you. What do you expect them to do for you? You know what I'm saying? They don't even know what they expect to do for you. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, so that's just the dynamic with that. And then when she decided to move back, I moved back. Because my whole premise on that is I want to be close to my daughter. I want to be part of my daughter's life, especially in the early ages. When she gets grown and she's out there living in the world and experiencing the world and as a grown woman, then hey, at that point I'm free to go wherever I want to go. But until then, I need to be near my daughter. You get what I'm saying? And so, and my whole thought process and logic behind that has always been this: like, if I make enough to where I can live anywhere and still see her whenever I want to see her, then I'll do that. But if I don't, then I need to stay close to her. Period. That's my logic, and that's what I've stood on, and that's where I am now. And so, yeah. So when it comes to your relationship with your woman, it should be the same. It should be exactly the same. There should really be no difference, because it's love. It's love. It's how to love. If I love you and I want to be with you, that's love. That's me wanting to be with you. It's not, and I know some people out there are going to say, love transcends distances, and it totally does. It really does. Like, even from a quantum physics standpoint, it's in the whole principle is it's in two places at the same time, right? So that love is present in that person and the other person at the same time, no matter where you are. And that's totally true. But it's not that you're addressing. It's the limitations. It's the limitations. And the limitations are that we as human beings, we need that interaction, especially with our partner, with our woman, right? We need that. Us as men, we need that. That's not something that it's not negotiable. We need it, So we need our black woman. We need you. That's not even negotiable. So what does that mean? So that means it's not a discussion. We're not discussing whether or not we need a black woman. We're discussing on how can we make it where we can actually be in love and maintain that love, right? So that's where you have to be. And as a team, as a partnership, as a spiritual bond, that's where your conversation should be. That's where they should be. You should be talking about that. Y'all should be talking to each other about, okay, these are our goals. This is what we want to accomplish. How can we do this together? Because if it's not together, then you over there, I'm over here, we doing our own thing. Okay, well, we just doing our own thing. We can't call that a relationship. You can do your own thing in a relationship, and you will. But when it comes to building, you have to build together. And with that, I'm going to end this podcast. And I know we didn't get as deep into it as I really wanted to, but that's okay, because we can always come back and address it later. And if you have any questions or you want to make any comments, please feel free. Go to the Anchor platform. They have the ability to send messages to this podcast, and if you do, I'll put it out there, and we can chop it up. We can talk about it. We can vibe on it, and we can build. I really want to reach out to my community. Anything that I can help and do, I really want to try to do that. And I really appreciate everybody who's been supporting me and been waiting on this podcast and been telling me, look, we're waiting on this podcast. What are you doing right now? And so, but I mean, preparations first, right? First things first. Had to make sure my family was good. Had to make sure, my people was good. So and from there, make sure my businesses are good, right? And so, got to make sure all that's good too. So, and here I am, so definitely you guys are part of my process, and I really do appreciate everything. And so with that, I'm signing off. This is the Intelligent Gentleman, and saying to you, peace, love, and happiness. Please go out and love today. Have a great one.